Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Incantations and Elixirs, where conversation meets cocktails. Tonight, we're going to have a really interesting show. Tonight, we're talking about what everyone is trying to avoid: attachments, possession, and exorcism. We have a great guest tonight, James Annitto, who is going to join us when he's able to. So I'll bring him in whenever he gets here. Hi, everybody. I'm glad to see that the conversation's already started. I do have a couple of things that I want to talk about before we even delve into this. So I've done some really interesting research. I'm sorry, I'm wearing my glasses, and I know that there's a little bit of a glare, but I can't see. I'm getting old, as you can tell. I found something really interesting. Um, so there's been a poll, and this was since 2021. So it's not from this year; it is from last year. However, it shows that 29% of people claim that they have been touched by someone who died. 18% of adult Americans claim that they've seen or have been near a ghost. 20% polled were unsure if they believe in ghosts. 41% state that they believe in ghosts. 43% believe in demons. I find that really interesting. So 29% claim that they have been touched by someone who died, yet 41% believe that they believe in ghosts, and 43% believe in demons. I find that to be so strange that there's such a large percentage that believe in demons, but yet they're not believing in ghosts, something that their loved ones could be with them at any moment and can be touching them and be coming to visit them for a great thing or something like closure. That kind of blows my mind a little bit. I don't know, how the people that are in the comment section, how many people believe in ghosts? I just want to get a little bit of an idea of what's happening with us. And while you're doing that, I just want to see what's going on with you guys. And I know that there are people watching on Facebook, you're watching from YouTube, and you're not going to be able to be counted until later, but we'll find out what's happening. So before James comes on, I'm going to go over some things so everybody has a better idea. I did some research, and I find this really interesting because I found a lot of things that I had no idea about, and I've been doing this most of my life, and I did find some things that I didn't know about. So we have one, two, three at least that we know of. Yes, Daisy. Daisy she works for the Oosterhout Library, which was just recently on Ghost Hunters. And it was a really fascinating show. If anybody has not seen it yet, I definitely recommend that you watch. They found a lot of really interesting evidence, and they were actually pretty interested in what transpired there. So I would definitely suggest that you watch if you're able to. Hey, Venus. Hi, guys. So here's what I found, and I'm going to go over the different things. So attachments. Everybody thinks that if you have an attachment to you, it's just kind of latched on your back, like a backpack. You're running around town and you have this spirit with you, and everyone thinks that they're negative. Ron did do a recording, and I didn't get a chance to get back to you, Ron. I apologize for that. So a spirit attachment is an energy or entity that's connected to a person after breaking through their aura. So It's not always an evil entity. It could even be a loved one, or someone who passed away, and it could be a family member, even an ancestor that you did not know about. And this could be for comfort or resolution of something. Um, this happens when you have a leak in your aura. So, what that means is when you have typically a trauma, um, it could be that you have weak emotions, you had fear of some sort of anxiety, but typically is a trauma. Some type of depression, loss of personal power due to drugs and alcohol. Now, like I said, it's not always the case that it is an attachment that is evil. It could be a family member, or an ancestor. The attachment itself will attach to what someone would call a host. It's like a parasite, I guess, in this case, and it will suck you completely dry. Even if it is a family member, even if it is an ancestor, they don't realize that they would be doing that. Um, they do connect to you. It could be an elemental, it could be a spirit, and it could also be a demon. And then that is obviously the most dangerous sort. You can find out if that is something that is happening to you. Some family members may notice what is going on and they may tell you that something seems off with you. You may notice something is off with you, and it may be something that is happening frequently. So, you may notice that there is a tingling sensation on your body. It could be in one spot, it could be all over. There may be heat, there may be cold. It could be that there is a case that you're not feeling like yourself at all. It may be that you are having an ongoing thing. It could be a daily thing. It could be a back and forth. You're not recognizing who you are. It may be that you have noticed that there is something wrong with you on a regular basis and you're questioning who you are, and it's not like yourself to be the way you're acting. Constant conflict with people. It could be that you're fighting with others that are surrounding you. There could be people around you who seem to be dramatic, very dramatic issues, dramatic situations. It could be that you are feeding off of stress, chaos, constant stressful situations. It could be that, and I always use this as an example when they talk about the forms that you have probably heard about with a psychologist or a psychotherapist, when they say, check off all the things that seem to be a stressful situation for you: a marriage, a baby being born, somebody moving out of a household, you're moving away from a household, you're moving far away, parents getting divorced, if you start a new school, if you start a new career, if you're leaving a career, all of those things that they talk about, that's what I'm referring to. So those could be considered to be stressful situations. If you tend to pull people towards you who are considered to be narcissists, that can also be something related to that. So if you seem to be pulling people towards you that are very chaotic, or they have chaotic experiences constantly, if they're calling you and saying, you'll never believe what happened to me, and they seem to have a constant issue. Obsessive thinking. So if you or someone else that you know of seems to be constantly on the same subject over and over and over again, and they're obsessively thinking about this, it could be an entity that's doing this. They can cause more entities to be latching on due to that, because they're kind of leaking in through that aura. Someone who's ill quite often. If someone goes to a doctor and the doctor is not able to diagnose a situation, if you seem to have something that is not being diagnosed physically, mentally, emotionally, that can be one of the symptoms. If there's a huge burden that someone is not being, if it's preventing someone for achievements or success, if they're not getting promotions, if they're not having success in their life, if something's being holding them back. unexplainable rage, anger that's constantly lingering, and that person is lashing out at everyone, and it's a constant problem that's not normally like this person. If they're typically happy-go-lucky and they turn into a rage monster or they turn into the Hulk, that seems to be one of the symptoms as well. Um, if there is interference with a connection or a relationship to what they consider to be their God or their source, it doesn't necessarily have to be God per se. It could be Buddha, Allah, Mother Nature, whatever their source may be. Common symptoms can be fatigue or a lack of energy, constantly feeling cold spots, or as I was talking about earlier, if there's a part of the body that seems to be cold on a regular basis. Mental fogginess, not being able to concentrate, powerful negative emotions, as I said earlier, rage, poor memory, a lack of clarity if they're making poor decisions, panic attacks, anxiety, depression, severe mood swings. If they're constantly being avoided by others, intrusive and obsessive thoughts, if they're constantly going back to the same thing over and over and over again, and it's not typically like them to be that way. Abdominal pains or headaches, suicidal ideation, if they're hearing inner voices, if they're seeing things, insomnia, if they have a feeling of suffocation or there's something pressing on their chest. It could possibly be that there is something actually sitting on their chest instead of being on their back at all times. It could be on their chest. Constant fear, phobias, obsessions, and this could be something new. Strange skin sensations, maybe a vibration inside their body or on the outside of their body. Addictions, abusive behavior, that's something new. Anorexia or bulimia, severe allergies, feelings of being watched, which of course it would be the case because there's something that's latched onto them that's not normally there. Impulse or being attracted to something that's impulsive, if they're not normally someone who does extreme things and now they're doing extreme sports, or they're doing, they're jumping off of buildings or base jumping, and they normally wouldn't be that type of person. Sudden onset of aches and pains, or chronic and constant pain with an unknown origin. That could be something that is now part of this scenario. It was really interesting to read these things because I think it can't necessarily be deciphered for people who maybe have new mental illnesses or new physical illnesses. So I think you need to be very careful when you're calling someone out if they do have a possible issue. Chest positions common for sleep attachment. Yes, that's true, because there is actually someone. And if you watch, I think it's the second ring, it's a woman, or it's a man who was taking pictures. He's a photographer in Japan, and he finds that there is a woman actually hanging onto his back, which is really interesting. So you actually do feel the person hanging onto your back, which I don't know. I think that that's kind of strange that you would actually be laying on your stomach sleeping if there is a person there that you can't see. Andy says, thing was sitting on me. My room went icy cold and there was very strong smell of tobacco. That's interesting, Andy. I actually woke up one night and I did have something that was negative in my house. And I literally felt them hovering over me. They weren't laying on top of me, but I couldn't breathe and I couldn't move the covers. I couldn't move my body. It wasn't sleep paralysis because I wasn't sleeping, but I literally felt the humidity of the thing that was there. Um, and I kind of just closed my eyes and just I don't necessarily pray, but I kind of prayed to make it go away, and I just made sure I fell asleep until the next morning, and it was probably one of the scariest things that has happened to me in my lifetime, and it was terrifying. It was a female, and she kind of stuck around in my house for a long time. It was scary to experience. It's awful. She wasn't It wasn't a demon. She just didn't know the difference between what was funny play and what was scary play because she wasn't mentally there. And she was kind of like an energy vampire. And I wasn't well at the time. So it wasn't fun to deal with. Um, so there are actually a couple of types of spiritual attachments. The first one is earthbound entities. So it would be a spirit of the deceased that didn't leave this realm. So anything that really didn't have the opportunity to pass over for some reason, and it wasn't in a good space. So typically, it would be like a suicide or um, maybe something that had a traumatic experience, such as a murder or something of that nature. While I was reading, it was really interesting to me that I found if someone passed away and they had an addictive personality, for instance, if they had a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction, they will actually use the person that they are attached um, to experience that addiction through the person that they're attached to. So they will um, take the person and they will kind of force them to use a drug or an alcohol so that they can experience that through that living person, which I find to be really kind of crazy and bizarre all at the same time. I'm not someone who has an addictive personality. So I'm wondering, and we can ask James when he comes in later, if that's something that if I don't have an addictive personality and I don't do drugs or I'm not really a big drinker, um, if something was attached to me, if it would use me to do drugs because that's what they did in life. So I find that really interesting. The other thing is a relative will live inside the body of the person to use the energy body of the living, kind of like an energy vampire, really, which is also interesting. It's kind of like they're living vicariously, literally through the person. What you're talking about, a spirit attaches to a person, was a movie. Yes, that was a movie. Um, the next one is a thought parasite. So if you're obsessing over a thought and you're feeding into it, it will create a thought, what I call a thought bubble, and that will attach to your aura. So the thought bubble that I'm referring to is energy that feeds on our own aura, kind of like a parasite would. So it's kind of like a hypnotic suggestion placed in our head. It starts to create dramas that continue to play out that we choose to believe, and it keeps spinning a web. And then if we get this misperception in our head, it causes us to fuel our lower frequencies. So when we talk about the 7 deadly sins, it's kind of like that. So we get the jealousy and the fear and the greed and the rage and the hate and the hostility going, and we start getting this, I know she hates me and I'm very jealous of her and I hate that she does that and whatever. So our misperception of that and our and actions that are of our own doing, not what the person is doing. They can be thinking, I really love that girl and she's wonderful and I think I'd like to be friends with her, but we're in our own heads, and it's not that we've done that, it's our misperception, and that it's our actions that we're doing it. However, the attachment discourages us from pushing those thoughts away, and it just keeps feeding us that information when we can actually stop it from happening. So it's just a little parasite that just keeps doing it. It's like the devil on our shoulder when the angel kind of just falls off and goes away. So that devil is just like, it's happening and she's doing that and she's saying those things and don't believe whatever that angel said, she's gone. So that's what a thought parasite would do. It would just keep feeding those bad images of whatever that person's doing. This one is mind-blowing to me, and I love the idea of past lives. So this one, I don't know. You guys can tell me what you think. Contracts from past or parallel lives. So this can happen whether it's consciously or unconsciously. You can have enemies from past lives or parallel lives, I'm sorry, that can stalk you, and they will come into this life to mess with you and be like an attachment. But the thing is, you can fix past lives and parallel lives in this life and make that go away. So that kind of attachment, I really don't think that that's something that's worrisome. How many of you believe in past lives or parallel lives, and do you think that it can be fixed? Because you can do a past life regression and go back and fix that, from what I believe at least. You can actually make a past life regret. You can go into a past life through a regression. You can fix that there, and that will fix this life. At least I believe that you can do that, and I have worked with people to fix that. So, does anyone else believe that? You can't make a past life go away, but you can actually fix what was the problem back then. So this one I think is the best. Okay. You can contact me and I can help you with that. I think that is the best out of all the attachments. I think that's the best to have if you do have one. I think that it's the easiest to take care of and work with, and the contracts can actually be canceled. I think we all have a contract in this lifetime because that's what you created before you were born, and because you signed a contract with your parents, with the people that are in your lifetime, and you've kind of already planned your life, but you do have free will, so you can work with that. So Ron thinks that he's not sure, but you can kind of, but there's something to it. I know what you think, Ron. So I'd like to hear people's opinions on these things because I want to get an idea. I don't think you necessarily will find out your past life unless you do a regression, and not everyone will know. Oh, here's James. Before I let him in though, the other forms of attachments are pain or tension. This one was the one I thought was really interesting. Pain or tension in the body may be attachments, but you're carrying soul fragments of another person who's living now with you, not necessarily with you, but it could be an ex who was abusive or who broke your heart, or a bully who tortured you. So that pain that you have could be from that person, which I find is really crazy. So let's let James in and he can talk to us about possession and the attachments, and definitely exorcism, because he's the genius behind all this. So let's let him in and we'll see what he says. Hi.
Evening. How you doing, Maureen?
How are you? Are you busy?
Always busy.
Always busy. So this is James, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
James is a busy man, and he is. Are you currently a deacon?
I am a deacon, yes.
Okay, so James is a deacon. If you want to kind of tell everyone a little bit about yourself and catch them up, I've been filling them in on attachments, and that's kind of how far we got. I thought it was kind of interesting, we went over the attachments and the signs of them and the types of spiritual attachments, and then that's when you came in. So
Perfect. A great entryway for me. The attachment himself.
You're not the attachment. You're the fun.
Yeah, my name is James Annitto. I am a deacon, a demonologist, a paranormal investigator and researcher that has been involved in the field for the past 16 years, in ministry and demonology work the past 12. I'm involved with PPRI, which is a parapsychology group out of New England and Canada, which is led by 2 doctors of social science. And then I am as well the founder and board member of the Dominion Ministry, spiritual warfare organization of an eclectic group of individuals that go from the East Coast to the West Coast, and we help in cases. But my main forte is demonology, and that is what most people go for, to my experience in. And yeah, I've been doing it for a very long time. I travel a lot, cases. I speak on the topic. And as of Saturday, have the grand goal of going to Romania for 11 days. So I am a busy person.
I'm a little jealous about that. I've always wanted to go to Romania.
Well, I'll take lots of pictures, Maureen. So
thank you. I so appreciate that. My husband and I were very lucky to meet James when we went to the Battlefield Bash, and our dog Anubis, who we call Floof, and you got to see him. So James, I was telling everyone, I thought this was really interesting that 41% of people, 41% of people were polled and said that they believed in ghosts.
Yeah, I think it's actually more close to 44%, if I remember correctly.
Depends on maybe it's been updated, but 43% of people believe in demons.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah.
So more people believe in demons. Is it that the world is that skewed and they believe in negative?
Yeah, really, what depends on that poll. I'm a statistics person. 55% of people have believed to have had angelic intervention. So 55%, of course, is a large margin. It's more than half of the world.
Right.
So it's quite interesting. I think people tend to jump to the theodic approach of a belief where there's good and evil or karma. And I think that's the reason people might believe in demons or angels more so than like ghosts or some other sort of phenomenon, because we've been put in the kind of fiber of our thought for a long time in culture is that there's good and evil, especially the Abrahamic religions, and then even in neo-paganism or paganism in general too, with of course Anubis, the Egyptian mythology. Even though they were more neutral and they could be benevolent or malevolent, depending on, of course, our tendencies or our invocation. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Civilization tends to believe in that good and evil spectrum more than the neutral or the, especially nowadays in Western culture.
Okay. So it's not necessarily the case that they're like fawning all over the negative. It's just that it tends to skew that way.
Yeah, well, we're humans. One thing that one thing that humans do is we tend to jump to the worst case scenario more than the positive outcome. So that has a lot to do with it too. More people, if they're going to deal with an unknown phenomena, something's going on in their house, they're probably most likely going to jump that it's something malevolent or evil or full of malefice to affect them, because they don't know what people don't know scares them, and that's also another reason people tend to jump to that conclusion.
I think that the unknown automatically is scary to
Yeah, of
people to
course.
begin with. I mean, like, they don't want to get a new job because they don't know what to
Yeah,
expect, so they just stick with the ho hum, or
yeah.
they stick with their ex-husband who's abusive because it's easier to do that than start fresh, or
Mhm.
whatever the case may be. So if they hear a noise, it's automatically scary. It could be a raccoon instead of, a ghost. It's automatically a ghost.
Of course. Yeah, that's I'm a psychology major as well. Out of all the other things that I listed, um, so one of the psychology's points of views in this perspective is that you're in the wild. The bush moves. Is it an animal, or is it just the wind or the air?
Right.
Most people are going to jump that it's an animal in the bush ready to attack, then it is actually air movement or even wind.
Mm-hmm.
It's windy out. That's just the fight or flight physical reaction that happens tends to just takes over sometimes, and most people will flee instead of stand their ground and um, figure it out.
There's a question for you. Can you pick up on if a person has an entity and they don't know?
No, I don't claim to have any clear abilities. I don't claim to be psychic medium. I would think that everybody has the ability, in some sort of form. We always call it sense. Everybody's naturally born with a sense, unless there's a deficiency, a deformity that occurs within and within our birth or within livelihood. So I think that we all have it, but what I necessarily have is, I call it discernment. And what my discernment is understanding if somebody is being truthful or basically a good person or not a good person. And that's what my discernment is. So I can definitely in some ability, because I've been around it a long time, can kind of feel it, but I also don't like to say I can. I think that anybody that ever comes across a demonic entity, regardless if you claim to have abilities, don't have abilities, if you're agnostic or atheist, you're going to feel it, because it is a diabolical force. It is the true intent of evil. And I think as people, we can feel this kind of emotion, and it's something that I relate to. If we go to work every day and it's a positive environment, we're going to go to work, loving our associates or coworkers. And if we hate work and it's a negative environment, we're going to dread going there. We're going to hate our workers. We're going to feel that within the pit of our stomach. So I kind of relate that. I kind of gather these senses
Right.
throughout my involvement in it. But like I said, the demonic is very powerful and strong. And if you've been around it, you kind of understand it. But they also at the early stages masquerade, and it's really hard to detect as well. And that's why people like myself look at certain different signs or certain pieces of communication that's happened to kind of piece the puzzle together. But if you're untrained and not knowing of the situation, then it could be a different avenue somebody goes down.
Right. So we went over the types of spiritual attachments, and I found some interesting things that I wanted to ask you about. So the first thing was the earthbound entities.
Yeah.
The relatives will live inside of the living being as like an energy body, so that they can live with your energy. So that's like an energy vampire almost.
Yeah, well, earthbound spirits are interesting. Why are they bound to the earth? Why do they linger? A lost soul. There's so much theory. Maybe I think really what the true opinion of me, even when it comes to attachment, I think that we are the battery to a haunting or to that paranormal phenomenon. I
Mhm.
always say, everybody says the chicken or the egg, but I always say that if there were no humans, there would be no haunting. And it's that body of emotion. And this is all theoretical, but I put a lot of thought and observation into this. And one of the things is that we are that tether. We have love, we have fear, we have all these levels of emotion that we put into objects, into people, and sometimes we are that anchor for somebody's energy, matter, soul, whatever you want to utilize in terminology, to allow it to stay here because we think about it. We always, especially people that lose lost loved ones, they think about them. Oh, why I miss this person. That tether's there, and we experience, and they stay bound to the earth where we experience them. So I think even with an attachment, when we go do something and we are explorative in nature to talk to something or just even explore a location that might have history, sometimes that we open that line of communication, or we have that imaginative or gullibility ability where we just allow something to ascertain into our life, and we have that attachment because we feed into it. We don't know how to linger away from what's going on. I've always said to people the best medicine for attachment is not to think about it. Yes, it does suck to go through it, and things do occur, and you might have distractions. But if you take away from those distractions and you focus on your life and focus on bettering your life, that attachment will wither away at a pretty quick pace. It might take a while, but if you linger on it and you continue feeding it like the battery you are, then the attachment lingers. So I think a lot of it has to do with us and how we tether it. Earthbound, preternatural in the sense that beyond the celestial, beyond this realm. I think anything has to do with how we tether and anchor to this earth.
Right. So what about like an earthbound entity that has had an addiction issue, and they're trying to experience their drug addiction through a living person? So say, for instance, I'm not an addictive personality, but could they possibly get me to do drugs if I didn't do them before?
Yeah, definitely could. They definitely could. I think that takes time. It's not something automatically at the snap of the finger, but I think once that attachment or that earthbound spirit that has this addiction withers into the person's core, is able to kind of meddle with their thoughts, then that definitely could come apparent where they are dabbling into drugs, something that they maybe did not do before. It is a possibility,
Really,
but hopefully it never gets to that point.
Hopefully. So what about the contracts from past or parallel lives, whether they're created consciously or unconsciously? You have an enemy from a past life that can come into this lifetime. Do you believe in that? Do you think that happens?
So my opinion, I think there's a lot of science to this degree to understand why people have memories of the past or memories of deceased loved ones. I don't really believe in past life regression, to be honest with you. That's my opinion. Okay. I know a lot of people do. It's just not my thing.
I do, but that's just
genetics. Like, one thing I'll tell people here, genetics. If my grandfather never met my grandfather, served in World War II, that is a memory that's implanted into the brain. And then if he has offspring, then that offspring will have that memory. And then the offspring after that will have that. This is science. This is actually what happens. It's epigenetics, genetics. So you might have never experienced that war, but you might be having these thoughts and these memories that seem so real, like that you lived them, because this can happen. This is how the brain is. I know humans always think we're the most important being, a creature in the world, but the brain is a pretty damn interesting creation that we have been given. It's very powerful. It can process in many different ways. The only thing that can probably compute faster than us in a directional, in one singular way, is the computer. But the computer cannot analyze and calculate in the way we do in multiple different bidirectional forms. So it's interesting. So I think it's always open for debate. I think people have had interesting stories. But see, I just don't believe in it. But I understand it. I respect it. And hey, to each their own.
Yeah. So what about if you have pain or tension in your body
Yeah.
and it's an attachment, it could be carrying soul fragments from another person who's living, and it could be an abusive ex who broke your heart, or a bully, or do you think that that's something that's possible, that someone who's living is sending you that attachment?
Well, people say hexes and curses, and of course, the in neo-paganism, you have the threefold rule that you send something that comes back to you threefold.
Mm-hmm.
Um, See, it's hard. So, like, I think people can put their intentions on other people, maybe conjure something up to meddle in somebody's life. So, I think that definitely could occur for certain. I also think that if they're feeling pains in certain areas of their body, maybe if there's an attachment, maybe it is that person was stabbed there, or that's how they died, and that's the kind of this is like my lungs are crushing because that's what happened to them. I can't breathe. So I think there's different pieces of the puzzle on that. But I had people experience that. I've dealt with people believe they were hexed. And I've had people do candle magic and mirror magic before. So I do believe it works in some sense of setting intention back. But also, I think the biggest tool of that is as well your willpower. You could okay. Somebody sent. I know I made an enemy. They dabble in black magic or other forms of ritualistic craft that has a good side to it but a bad side to it, and they might be putting something on you. I think that's a lot of preconceived notion as well. So I think there's two things that are battling at that point: our subconscious, not conscious, and that person's intention, and it meets in the middle and it affects us.
Yeah.
But
So
we are.
Ron wants to know if his leg disorders can be attachments.
What is it?
He said, could my leg disorders be attachments?
I don't know. I always say physically and medically get it checked out first
That's what I said too.
before you jump to any supernatural. Like, I tell people that have sleep paralysis or old hag syndrome, I tell them to go get a sleep study done. And if they pass that, then we tackle the other things. But your leg disorder could probably most likely be a leg disorder.
Yeah.
But you never know. If you're into Reiki or angel therapy or other things like that, I'm not saying they don't work. Maybe go do that. Go get acupuncture. Maybe that'll work. There are forms that you can go through that have holistic practices that might benefit you as well. If you think it's something else than just a medical issue.
And Giuseppe said, like, make a voodoo doll of you.
Well, see, the thing is with the voodoo doll, it's bad incantation, because a voodoo doll was made. It's an effigy, right? And a lot of people don't understand what the term effigy is, or
Mhm.
puppet, right?
And they could be used for positive or negative.
Yeah, but mostly positive. The pin is meant as a sensory tool. It's meant for points of healing.
Mhm.
Yes, you can put bad intention into it and say, I want to give this guy head pain. Yeah, but the main concept of voodoo from the Voodoo belief was that it was for healing, not negativity. But bad people do bad things, and they like to twist it in their hands,
Yeah. And I've actually, I've felt, I'm a physical psychic medium
Mm-hmm.
also, and I do have medical things, but I've felt exactly the way people had passed away when we go on sites, or I can tell someone what may be wrong with them. And I will say in advance, I am not a medical doctor, I am not a healer, I am not a practitioner. I will help to, I will help you as much as I possibly can, but I will not fix you.
Mm-hmm.
I will do whatever I can. But I've literally had my left arm go completely numb, couldn't move it, and as soon as I told them what I felt, it was back to the way it was.
Yeah.
Can't explain it, but that's just what happened.
Yeah.
you know.
That it's a gift that thankfully I don't have and never want. You can keep it.
Thanks. Driving through a battlefield is hell.
Oh, I can imagine.
So I have the 4 degrees of demonic possession. We have infestation, which sounds like a great time for people who like to go to haunted houses. You know, footsteps, voices, apparitions, furniture moving around, the fun parts of it, but not so fun.
Well, so infestation is not as methodical as you think it is. In every sense, it is like a traditional haunting. This is the stage where the masquerade is there. The mystique of what could it be is there. Because I always tell people a demon doesn't outwardly come out and say, "This is who I am." You know, a lot of people at places get on spirit boxes or EVPs. I am Belial, I am Baal, I am Beelzebub. But a demon wouldn't come out and say that because guess what? They're masquerading.
They don't need their name.
They won't give the name because it loses the masquerade of who they are, the trickery. They are master acts of deception. That's what they are. They deceive people. So that is their tool. So an infestation, they usually come off as somebody nice, a lost loved one, a child, an elder, and this phenomena will happen. There will be activity, but it won't be horrific. It won't be scary in the sense beyond most people being startled. But yes, it is an early stage to a greater haunting that goes through many steps. And hopefully, if infestation is caught, it is the easiest stage to rid yourself of. But unfortunately, a lot of people tend to go to the next stage. What's the next stage? Can you remind me? I'm just kidding. I do know what it is.
Oppression. But before you do that, so
Yes.
what's the difference between infestation and a PK manifestation? Because they're similar.
Yes. So PK manifestation is basically like a thought form or a poltergeist, or in the sense of that, where it doesn't get to that point yet where it has its own intelligence, but it is basically, like I like to say, a psychic tantrum. So it is using psychokinetic force, which is, of course, through our third eye, mediumship abilities, whatever. And sometimes that what happens is, in like a poltergeist case, is level 1 through 5 in a poltergeist haunting. And basically, it is somebody that usually is in adolescence and they're so aggravated at life. They're going through change, bodily and mental changes, and maybe spiritual changes. So let's say I have a water in front of me. They might be so mad that the water moves, or an object bilocates or ports or something like that because of a thought pattern. PK is psychokinetic, which has a lot to do with parapsychology. An old way of saying it was telekinesis. But PK activity is involved with the individual, while a demonic infestation is an outward exterior force that affects multiple people, while the PK activity will affect objects, but usually tends to affect the individual that might be dealing with it. So there are different forms of looking at it. But there also, and sometimes within a demonic haunting, there could be PK activity as well, because usually what we see, the person that's dealing with these stages, the infestation, like I said, affects everybody. But when to the next stage happens, usually that person tends to have a traumatic history or some sort of trauma going on in their life.
So a lot of times it's from what I understand, it's usually girls who are going through puberty, and they tend to kind of have a psychic.
It's not always girls, but most of the time it seems to be young adolescent girls. Yes, it could be boys too. Even adults can generate PK activity with enough thought and projection, but usually tends to be the younger children.
So menopause with the hormones.
Well, menopause probably. I haven't. I don't think really research has been thoroughly done on people going through menopause, and But why I think the children are more affected is because we got to remember how our uh, uh, brain works. Like at 5, the core memory starts to be developed. And then I think 25 is when the brain stops developing. So in between that point, we're at the midway point when we're at adolescence, in the sense of where we are going through puberty, and our mind, our body is going crazy. We tend to have more tantrums, outward emotion, especially for females. And I think that has a pinnacle of the point where the pineal gland starts to develop. So, which in a sense, it starts to either make a wall between your abilities or enforce and increase your abilities. I think that has a lot to do with it. And the pineal gland has been tremendous research for 4,400 years. The Hinduism was one of the leading researchers on the pineal gland being a third eye. And
Well, it's not crusted over yet. So
yeah. And now we know that the pineal gland fully developed actually sends kind of like a bioelectric a signal out, but it also releases melatonin, which is make you calm and go to sleep. So why would melatonin be released from the gland if it wasn't meant for us to kind of open to the third eye or open up some sense? Because we got to remember, when people meditate or go into trance, they're centering themselves, they're aligning their chakras, they're doing many different things to comfort themselves. So it makes sense. It really does make sense.
Yeah. So the next one's oppression. And that's when the activity begins to ramp up and it's more physical.
Physical, but more mental than anything. It tends to 180 the individual. So that person starts to, if they don't have addictive personality, maybe they'll start becoming addictive to certain things because it's negative to them. It breaks them down and maybe neutralizes their ability to think. They start distancing themselves away from family, friends, themselves. Things that they used to love doing, they don't do anymore. They linger in the darkness. They maybe listen to more dark music. Things that kind of bring on negative emotion to them. They start doubting themselves, start separating from their faith. But physical things can happen too. But usually the physical things happen in the next stage, but they can happen in oppression, where in the sense that if they're fighting, there could be some physical recourse that happens to this individual. But when somebody's going through oppression, they don't actually know they're dealing with a demon at all. And unless they've been alerted somehow and somehow conceive that they are dealing with a demon, at this point, they still are thinking they're just going through a downward spiral in life.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not. There's no incantation of a negative spirit or a demon, because that spirit that was nice to them and they open that line of communication might start coming off a little bit more horrifically. But these will be in nightmares and other forms of communication. That there's still that illusion there, because the demonic entity doesn't want the person to realize what's going on in the oppression stage, because this is the middle waypoint. This is where their goal is almost accomplished.
Gotcha. Okay. So then we move on to obsession.
Obsession. Obsession is a very interesting stage. Obsession doesn't always have to be there. It is one of the least common. Usually, oppression is the most common, but obsession is a stage which I'm glad that you brought it up. Could mean many things. Some people will say that they obsess overly of the demonic entity, or that they invoke it, or some people will say that when it gets to that point of oppression, they become obsessive about it. Like they start doing research, they start dabbling into things. But obsession's really not as common. But I'm so glad that you definitely brought obsession up, because a lot of people don't know that stage at all.
I think it's because everyone gets the impression that demonic possession is so much like the movie The Exorcist, and it just gets in their head that way. And they didn't show that part of it, so that just slips away. But
well, yeah, Exorcist was 1973 was a pinnacle point in Western culture, for demonic and exorcisms being known to the Western culture. Before that, nobody really had a clue. So it's very interesting to see how much that kind of painted the landscape of what we believe now.
Mm-hmm. But you can kind of tell based on, I mean, even if you just watched the movie and you really don't know anything else, how obsession could be part of that. Because going through something like that, how could you not think about committing suicide 100 times a day, knowing what you go through? I mean, who would want to live through that kind of hell? And I mean, there are people who think about that without having to deal with that on a daily basis. So
Oh yeah, for sure.
it has to be horrible.
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy thing. I never dealt with it myself, but I've seen a few people deal with it, and I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy. And it's hard to swallow. It's hard to even conceptualize a word to what's observable when these people are going through this kind of pain and sorrow. And after this, what they deal with traumatically through post-traumatic stress disorder and mental disorders that they might generate from this.
Right. So then we have the final degree of it, which is the possession itself.
Yes.
How similar to what we saw in the movie is it? I mean, the Exorcist bishop had stated that it's nothing like that. It's not as severe as they showed in the movie. They just made that look that way for the movie, but it's different. It's more severe in different ways. How many times have you seen this get to that point?
Well, I've seen people under possession only 3 times in my time.
Okay.
But it is not like the movie in the sense of where, they're vomiting pea soup or vomiting at will. The head's not spinning. Levitation's a very much so rarity. There's the differences in the sense it's not as theatrical, more so than morbid, where there is a lot more drama, a lot more feeling. There are the physical elements such as the eyes going black, maybe the face deforming a little bit, vocal pattern changes, precognition to some little extent. Demons can't tell the future, but they can do their best to piece your life into what the future could become and deceive you that way. So they also have diversion from to religious iconography, as long as positive incantation to it, such as an amulet, talisman, Christian symbols, whatever it is. So that these things do occur. The holy water have an effect, or moon water have an effect, is true. So there are similarities, but to where it ends is, it doesn't get as severe as The Exorcist. Like the person that you're explaining that I think the movie was based on, definitely was right. Father Gabriel Morth, who also was one of the exorcists that were kind of vision. Oh my God, I can't imaginized or whatever envisioned when they were making that movie off the true story was Father Gabriel Morth. And, he had like over 100,000 exorcisms in his 45 years. And he came across things that normal people wouldn't come across, like levitation, but that because he did it so many times and he was the chief exorcist. But even the most common exorcists might not come across that. It takes repetition, takes a lot of time and years within it. But yeah, so there are a lot of differences. It's not as theatrical, let's say, but it's still not an easy pill to swallow dealing with that, for sure. It's things that follow you to this day. Like, I'm a very forgetful person, but I can tell you, every situation that I came across that maybe I would quantify demonic always will linger with me. It will always follow me because it was horrific, and it was tough. What the family unit had to go through, what the individual had to go through. It's like I said, I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. And for possession, people as well. Possession. A lot of people don't know has two stages as well to it. Is transient possession and perfect possession or full possession. Transient possession is the most common. Why it's transient is because, as the definition transient, come and go, or to go, is that basically there's still free will there. The willpower is still there of the individual, even at the oppression stage, but it is more demoralized. Usually, for oppression or possession to occur, the person has to give up, invitationally wise, like I let you in, or I can't do this anymore, just outwardly, not even realize what they're dealing with. They just basically are ready to be done. And so basically that's when the transient possession will occur. And once the person's free will battles this demonic consciousness, it pushes it out, the person regains their consciousness, is able to live their life, then basically that oppression continues to occur in the possession stage. Now, where that most rarest, I've never come across it. I would say that Annalise McKell, which was the movie, which was the real life story of what movie Exorcism Emily Rose was based on. I feel like dealt with perfect possession. I know it's always debated because she died of malnutrition. And people would say that it was a medical situation. She had a lot of issues beforehand, but I also think that she died of malnutrition because when you get to perfect possession, the body no longer allows any food to be consumed, no water to be consumed, and we start to deteriorate at a faster pace than we would if we were going through transient possession. So that is where the person's consciousness is no longer there. The person's a vegetable, and the demonic consciousness or demonic entity has full reign over the human body now. And it's really, really hard for if an exorcism to occur and for it to be to work. Usually that person probably will die at that point in time.
It's so sad. I mean, it should never get to that point.
Yeah.
What do you think? And I grew up Catholic, but I'm not Catholic now, obviously. But do you think that there's a reason that certain people do become possessed? I mean, obviously in the movies, it's Ouija boards or whatever, but I mean, I use tarot cards and dowsing rods and pendulums, and they're all forms of divination. And I always say that I don't think that a Ouija board is any different than any other form of divination, as long as you use it safely and you know how to use it properly and you have the right intentions. But there are lots of people who have never touched a Ouija board and they become possessed. Do you think it's something to do with religion or something to do with how they carry on in life? Or is it divination, or is it something completely different?
I think it's multiple different things. I think in the demonic sense, it's trauma and then dabbling. So if they have trauma and maybe they're seeking out the occult or investigating or playing around with divination without knowingly what they're doing, then I think that could be an easier entryway for something to be invasive and then come into your life. But it's sometimes unknown how it can occur. Sometimes I like to say it's right place, wrong time, right place, a right place, wrong time, or wrong place, wrong time, whatever analogy you want to use. Um, but it really is all different for every person. Um, like I said, though, I think the commonality, going back to statistics, is that every case that I dealt with, there was a level of trauma, a level of negativity in their life that really kind of drew this being into this place, to this location, to this individual. And that's the commonality that I can see. Trauma. I think that's very piece of that's a very big piece of the puzzle, especially when you peel back the onion to figure out why it's there. So, but what they were doing could be totally many different things.
Do you
I
think there's a weakness behind the person?
Oh yeah, for sure. That I think they have a weakness in the sense that they're not fully mentally there. They don't fully believe in themselves. So there, when you don't fully believe in yourselves, your faith is not fully there either. And I 100% agree in that, because if you really believed in your faith, then you would really believe in yourself, regardless of what faith you believed in. Because for you to have faith, you have to have faith what was given to you as an individual to make yourself better, to do better. And if you have doubts in yourself, then you have doubts in your faith. And then that is the entryway, in my opinion. None of us are perfect. We all have vices, but we can have vices and still believe in ourselves and still have faith. So I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. If the littlest hole can allow anybody to come in, look at what I like to use physical analogies. Look at the Mongolian Empire, right? They became the biggest empire. They were able to overcome the Great Wall of China by this much, by a small hole, and they were able to take over most of that world at the time, and they became the largest empire by landmass to ever exist.
Could you imagine what Genghis Khan's self-esteem looked like?
He must have boasted. So he was so stoic, from what I understand. He was stoic. He had his chest puffed out. He was a tyrant, but a tyrant in so where he was a phenomenal leader. Even though they were tyrants, the Mongolian Empire were actually one of the most well-versed empires, where the sense that they had multiple different belief systems, languages incorporated into their empire. Instead of forcing their belief and their language on other people, they incorporated every place they conquered, they incorporated into their civilization. Of course, they're now one of the smallest empires or countries out there. They've definitely fell from their graces. But yeah, no, it takes a stoic person for sure. We're not all untouchable. We're not bulletproof or attachment or demonic proof. But I think that if you have a good head on your shoulders, good faith, and don't linger from that, then there's less of a chance of dealing with it.
Mhm.
But like I said, you could be in that bad moment of your life, midlife crisis, wrong place, wrong time, and then there you go.
So, when you do an exorcism, a lot of people say that they say an old priest and a new priest, or young priest. They say that only Catholic priests can perform this. And I know that I read something that you said the other day, and it does not have to be a Catholic priest. What were you taught?
So I am not an exorcist. I am a deacon. I'm not a priest. I can at times perform a minor exorcism, but I don't perform the solemn rite of exorcism. And before I was Catholic, I was actually a deliverance minister with the Church of Christ, which doesn't have exorcisms. They have deliverances, and so doesn't the Catholic Church. So as somebody that's eclectic to religion and has studied multiple different religions, um, you know, Judaism has a form of exorcism that rabbis do. Islamic leaders through the Muslim faith have forms of exorcism. Hinduism has a form of exorcism with the fur dagger. Craft members of pagan belief system has a form of expulsion or exorcisms, maybe different name. Most civilizations and belief system has a form of exorcism or expulsion of a negative spirit. Why I would state that most people, if you're Christian, should go to the Catholic Church and seek that route is because they have the most protocols and they have the best medical staff and like-minded people helping out. I'm not saying that if you're not Catholic, you should go that route, because you should never get your faith that you don't believe in pushed down your throat.
Right.
But the protocols is what makes the Catholic Church the place to go for a solemn rite of exorcism, in my opinion, because they will have you go see a physician to get a physical done. They will have you get a psychological evaluation done. They will check these boxes off before they start doing an exorcism on you, which can be dangerous if you don't have a demonic entity and you have schizophrenia or have bipolar or a psychosis issue, because it could help as a form of psychotherapy, but in the same sense, it could be retroactive in the sense that it will actually cause more harm. So that's why they say the Catholic Church would be the way to go for an exorcism. But other people can do it, and just be cautious who you reach out to. That's the only reason I would have to side with the Catholic Church on that, not just because I am a deacon of the United States Catholic Church, but because I've seen the protocols. I've been out of a Catholic Church as a deliverance minister where it was free willy-nilly. I could just do a deliverance on whoever I wanted if I thought they had a demon or a negative spirit. There was no control. There was no protocol. And I've seen other faiths as well have no protocol. And I think that's dangerous. I think it's dangerous when you allow people out there to go willy-nilly and just do ministry work without understanding the full degree of what could be going on.
So if you're not Christian, would you suggest still contacting the Catholic Church?
Oh, hell no.
Okay.
They probably won't help you.
Right. And that's what I'm saying, because if you don't believe in the same thing, I mean, I'm a witch. I'm not Wiccan because I'm not really big on organized religion. I take a little bit of everything I love from all different religions and put it together. But if I don't believe in God per se, but I believe in source,
Creator,
and I like the Buddha idea, and I like Mother Nature, and a little bit of everything. If they come in and they start saying, "Do you believe in God the Almighty?" and I'm like, "Oh." Then is that going to work? I don't see that happening.
Well, there has to be some form of recognition of what's going on. There has to be some compatibility for things to work. Well, in the sense that why I say the Catholic Church, 2.2 billion people are Christian. So a good chunk, especially in the United States, a good chunk of people can go that route. But for people that are not, you either swallow that pill of listening to this and agreeing to it, like in a sense where you don't have to start believing in God in that sense, but you use it as like a form of medicine. I know people that don't like take medication, but eventually they have to. So I think it really is where you agree to disagree, but understand that this could be a route to help you. But you can always reach out to somebody like myself, who might know other religious leaders that are proficient in their rite of exorcism or their expulsion ritual, and we'll get them in touch with you to do your form of ritual in what you believe as well. So, if you're not Catholic or Christian, if you go out to the Catholic Church, they will try to conform you, but they think that's what's right. But sometimes it's not, and sometimes that's the worst. But there are exorcist priests out there that don't care what denomination you are. They're non-denomination exorcists. Even though they're Christian by their background, they will work with anybody. regardless of faith.
Okay.
But there are
like
a lack of them. There are a lack of them.
So what steps do you take to determine if someone's actually possessed as opposed to being mentally ill? Because I know that I read that if there are a lot of people that are in asylums that may not actually be mentally ill, and some people think that are actually either they have an attachment or they're possessed.
Yeah, I don't know how much they agree on that, to be honest with you. I see like 90% of the cases that I come across are either psychological or psychokinetic activity, or people that have abilities and are confused and don't know how to control it, and they're like on a highway system of spirit where they keep coming and they get
Which is like, oh shit.
there's like a barrage of spirits, and they think, they take it negatively. So
Yeah.
those are the three most common occurrences that I come across. So I think most people, maybe have a mental health patient in a facility that has this ability, and that being barraged by these spirits, and that what makes them crazy, it pushes them over the edge. But to tell somebody if they're possessed, like I said, they have to go, for me, in my avenue, they have to go through psychological evaluation, and not just one, multiple, from different perspectives. And usually it's up to 3 from 2 different people.
Okay.
And I think if they can pass that through the DSM-5, I think that gives them a note above saying this is a mental disorder. And I really use that as a deciding tool. But I also think religious iconography is a key point as well. If I have a cross in my pocket and they have no hell of an idea of who I am, what background I have, and I have iconography on me or in my shoe, and they're able to say, I know what you have in your shoe, in your pocket, which has happened, then it's really hard to divert from thinking that there's not something going on there, because how the hell they know I have a cross in my shoe or a medal in my shoe?
Also the abilities though too, because
They
I can tell you what's in your shoe.
What's in my shoe right now?
Your socks.
What is it called? But yeah, they could have an ability, but they act negatively towards the religious item. Another tool of the trade is bottled water. If I ask for a bottle of water, they usually grab one too, because usually the activity of when you see somebody drinking, they drink as well. And I will, if they're not looking, bless it to be holy water. It takes just like a quick 10 seconds to do so, to say a few prayers, and sometimes even slip a little bit of salt in there. Just say a prayer. And usually if there's a negative reaction to the holy water, like they feel like they're burning, or they open it and then don't drink it because they understand what's going on. These are things that are telltale signs of that there could be something preternatural at play. Usually there are also tone changes. The transit activity occurs within the person where their personality changes, and they've already been cleared. They don't have dissociative identity disorder, or people call multiple personality disorder if you look at your old school, but their personality changes. One of the common things that I look at too is eyes. They always say the eyes are the window to the soul, and every time I've dealt with a possessed person, when they look at you, they're not looking at you; they're looking through you. And you feel that there's an uneasiness to it. They don't blink. They don't stay off the center of you. And to me, that's another sign, because I don't know how many people can't blink out there. There probably are a few people that have that trait or ability to not blink for a long period of time, but I think most of us would break eventually. So
your eyes get too dry. You can't. I mean, you have to blink eventually a little bit.
So these are things that I look at. There's a lot of steps to get to that point. I don't just shoot the D word or possession out willy-nilly. It's not even a word I like to use too often. Of course, I talk about it, but I don't throw it around in my cases. I don't ever claim, even if they're dealing with the demonic entity, I don't claim that they're dealing with it. There's just different steps you take to assessing and dealing with it if you do come across it.
Right. Are there only certain demons that have the power to possess people, and are there, what's like the most common demon, if that is the case? Like, are there only 5 that will possess?
Well, so a lot of people talk in demonology lore, demonology. I can't even say it, but the worship of demons is in most minions have underlings. Like you have the higher echelon of demons, which are known as the princes of hell, or commonly known as elder gods and goddesses from elder belief systems. But usually they're said to have multiple. Sometimes there could just be one higher being, but usually it's a mid-level or it has minions with it. And usually the minions don't necessarily possess more so the mid-level or higher level. That, to me, that's more of a lot of folklore to demonology, more than actually what can occur. As far as what I've come across, usually just one, but there has been stories or people that have dealt with many. And a lot of people like to jump to the biblical scripture of Legion when
you hear about the most. It's like Legion.
Yeah. So I have never come across a case where I thought it was more. There was one case I did in Arkansas, which was very fascinating. While doing prayers over somebody in the forest line, and this was seen by multiple people, a part of my team. There were red eyes that appeared in the landscape in the forest, and then you could say that there was many in that situation, but I never really come to the quainability. I don't perform an exorcism to reach to that conclusion that there is 20, 30, 2. I do the research involvement of it, and in my deliverances, I have gotten a name twice, but in the same time, though, it could have been more, but that person was able to overcome. So I don't know. The exorcist usually is who gets the names. Like I said, I'm not an exorcist, but people have a lot of different theory and lore about demonic names, and people relate it to the 7 sins and so on and so on. Demonology is massive, and in the opinion of how many demons there are, people say there's 72 from King Solomon's seal. So there's so much we could talk. We could talk a whole show or 20 of them just based on that lore.
Well, we still have like 35 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So my husband and I were just recently on a paranormal investigation with Porter and Stephanie Burke, and they said demonic hauntings or possessions are extremely rare, and I feel that is the case. Do you believe that is your opinion as well?
Yeah, I don't think they've ever came across it, but I could be wrong. But yeah, no, I definitely think so. I think too many people see. I think that, and this is maybe where it gets me in trouble sometimes. I think people that aren't demonologists or have my background shouldn't be talking about it. To be honest, and I love Stephanie and Scott Porter, but a lot of people don't know what they're dealing with because they don't go into the deep level of research that I do, or have experienced it, or deal with doctors and psychologists like myself, or have my background in theology or psychology.
I think what they said was like they see so many shows where it's like demons. Well, and they were like laughing about that because they're like,
well, Scott was on one of those shows, if I remember correctly, to be honest with you. So yeah, no, I like both of them. I wasn't saying anything bad about them. I was just saying that they are rare. But people like in a sense, they like to make them common. They like to talk about it. They poking their nose into it and say, well, demons are rare, but they have never come across it or never researched it to the level I have or other demonologists have. So they have a benign understanding of it, but yeah, it's rare. Like I said, 3 possession cases, and I would say 5 in total of cases in 16 years. It shows you its rarity, So I think that out of 500 plus cases of whatever I've done, 6 that's not a large margin.
Well, I think it's more the case that they could be negative. They don't have to be demonic. I mean, who wouldn't be pissed if they're stuck here? You know what I mean? Like, you want to cross over, but you did something stupid in life and you don't know how to cross over, you're going to be angry.
Well, yeah, a lost soul does get aggravated. The Judaic belief, a lot of people, because of the Divik box, got confused with what a Divik was. But the Divik, by normal Jewish folklore, was a lost soul that possesses because it is confused and mad that it's lost or it was killed tragically, and it goes against humanity for this as vengeance. But yeah, sometimes the lost soul does come out negatively due to whatever common cause that occurred to it, but also the sense too that sometimes negative people that pass on that maybe do linger stay negative in this time frame. I think when we talk about hauntings, residual hauntings, intelligent hauntings, and so on, but we tend to forget the word what intelligence means. And if these spirits are in fact intelligent, they can mess with you. They can act negatively if you approach them wrongly. There's so many things that an intelligent person can do. So if we use that word, we shouldn't use it loosely in what we are trying to communicate with. It can definitely react in the way we as human beings that are mostly intelligent do.
Right. I had something in my house, and I was telling them before, I think it was before you came on. I'm kind of like a beacon, I guess.
Yeah.
Because they can talk to me and I can talk back to them. So I had this woman come into my house. It turned out she had been beaten pretty badly as a child, and her IQ was kind of low. She, instead of when she, like how kids play and they kind of poke and they tee-hee, her idea of tee-hee was pushing something down the stairs or kicking something down the stairs. Nope. So she was in my closet and she kind of punched through the closet. It's just curtains. She punched through the closet. And when I saw that come out, I thought it was the cat playing. So I was kind of playing with the curtain. And when I whipped the curtain back, there was no cat. But the dog got kicked down the stairs and I got pushed down the stairs. So this was like a game to her that she was going to keep doing this. And finally I was like, I'm not dealing with this. I'm not going to keep playing this game with you. And then she grabbed me from underneath my bed and tried to pull, but the bed was kind of low. So of course my shin was bruised. She was hanging over me at night, like just deep humidity. And I have a breathing problem. So I'm like, can't breathe. She was probably angry. Her father beat the hell out of her to the point where she was like pretty much brain dead walking around, and she looked like the girl from The Ring.
Yeah.
So you have that with getting kicked and pushed down the stairs and like open the shower curtain naked and you're completely vulnerable and you see that,
That is pretty spooky.
So
at least you didn't die in 7 days like the movie.
I kind of felt like I wished I could at that point, and see that every single day, naked, that face with the greasy hair. And then finally I was like, I'm crossing you the hell over because this can't keep happening. But what happened was I got sicker and sicker and she just kind of fizzled out. There was no energy left for her to feed off of. So she just kind of shriveled into a grape.
Hey.
That's okay with me.
And she turned into a raisin.
Yeah, kind of.
Crazen. She's a crazen.
She's a crazen. But I have all kinds of crazy stuff walking around my house all the time, which is interesting. So
Hey,
the little
better you
kids
than
are
me.
the little kids are the ones that freak me out because you never know if they're little kids
Yeah, it's just it could be deception. Sorry.
or worse. Right. So I always make sure that, if I play with them a little bit and then I ask them questions and then come on, you want to cross over to mommy and daddy? That's where you're supposed to really be. And if they do, wonderful. If they don't, then we're going to have a problem someday.
I want to just note to you that I've been reading this chat. You have the most interesting chat ever.
We have some fun people.
Yes, you do. Talking about saws and doctors and stuff.
I'm missing the saws and the doctors. I don't know what happened with the saw. Get the saw. Oh boy. I don't know.
I feel like I'm a Saw movie right now. I don't know if I'm so be happy or sad.
So you'll be interested that Daisy works at the Oosterhout Library here, and Tango and Steve and Jason Hawes were here on Ghost Hunters, and they went through the library, and the library is very haunted. The interesting part about that is it used to be a church. I think it was a Presbyterian church.
Okay.
The more interesting part is that they built a different church, and the church that was built by my great-grandfather.
Really?
Yeah. They were pastors. So that's
kind of libraries.
It's a beautiful library. It has big stained glass windows and very cool place. Very cool. But it's a really cool episode.
Is that part of the new season?
This is one of the newer ones, yeah. James has to be in the chat. Are you studying or have a degree in psychology? Goofy wants to know.
Currently still studying.
You are probably one of the youngest people I've seen that is part of the clergy. So you're a deacon?
Oh, I'm 32. I'm 32. I'm not too young, but yeah.
You're young.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
That's pretty phenomenal, and I think that's great. So when you do an exorcism, do you walk out and like cleanse yourself? What do you do?
Well, remember I don't perform exorcisms, but if I'm doing deliverances or dealing with people, yeah, I tend to maybe go home, take an Epsom salt bath with Himalayan pink salt, some borax, and of course baking soda. That's my little mixture.
Okay. Borax gets rid of all of it.
Borax is awesome. Just don't swallow it. What's it called? I listen to music to raise my vibrations. I think of positive things. I try to invoke love in my heart with my children or people in my life. There's so many things that I do. I say a protection prayer before I go in, and do what's necessary to come out.
So, I know that you said that you're not Catholic. You're part of the Christian.
No, I'm Catholic. I'm United States Catholic Church. Yeah. Okay. So I wasn't Catholic. I was an ordained minister with the Church of Christ before I went to Catholic seminary to be ordained to the office of the diaconate, which is a deacon. But yes, so I'm more technically ordained in two. Well, I've renounced my prior ordination, but I can't speak tonight. It's been a long freaking week. But yeah, no, I am currently ordained as a deacon in the United States Catholic Church.
Okay. So what do you think a demon tries to accomplish or prove when it takes possession of someone? Is it just trying to take someone's soul, or do you think there's more to it than that?
Well, I don't think it's really attempting to take somebody's soul. I think it's really more trying to really thwart us. Like, so I like to look at it in the sense of like in a biblical sense, even though I'm not very biblical. Like, yes, I'm Catholic, and but I don't swear by the Bible, like in the sense where everything is verbatim. Like, I'm a history person too, and I
Mhm.
love biology. I love evolution. I love
Mhm.
science more than anything, besides my faith, of course. But I look at many different things, and I don't. So, like, what it could be or what it is, it's hard to distinguish. I don't know. That's a hard question.
Okay, so we'll skip to this one.
Yeah.
Did anything ever try to follow you home when you were
Well, nothing
doing?
demonic. So I had a case that I dealt with a family. I had nightmares. Beside one piece of the nightmare came true,
Okay.
where in my nightmare I killed the family, but I had never seen the family and never
Okay.
seen like the location. But when I went to the location, it was the same as my nightmare. The only difference is I didn't kill him. So that was pretty interesting, where it had kind of slithered into my dreams, where I was. But I had an attachment uh, of a negative spirit one time from East Providence case, which is like 10 minutes away from my house right now.
Mhm.
And basically, I was very young and very egotistical in the sense that I didn't think I was touchable. I had never experienced any physical harm or mental harm to this point. And basically, I had went in there, uh, uh, not with my faith, but with my own ego. And I dealt with an attachment from that. And that definitely followed me home. I definitely had 3 months of hell where I actually lost my job, lost my apartment, had money in the bank, and then negative all of a sudden,
Oh my
lost
gosh.
my girlfriend. Yeah, it was like a domino effect of bad fortune.
That's
And
like an attachment almost.
huh?
That's like an attachment then.
That was an attachment, yes. 3 months of hell of an attachment. And then I realized, so I had like basically, being in this field, I'm friends with a lot of different mediums, psychics, clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, blah, 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 so on and
That's
so
what we
on.
do. We pick
And
each other up.
I had like 10 people reach out to me that did not know each other at all, or didn't know each other probably, but did not communicate. And they all reach out to me and say, hey, we feel this presence on your right side latching on to your shoulder. And we feel you have an attachment from a previous case. I'm like, nah, you guys are BSing me, you and your freaking baloney. And eventually, like probably like the eighth or ninth or 10th person, I'm like, there has to be some truth to this. And then when I had that eureka moment, I actually got a call from that client again saying, hey, we're experiencing things again. I'm like, okay, well, this kind of lines up. They're experiencing things again when I had the eureka moment that, oh, wait, I am dealing with something. So I went back to that case, got a deliverance done on me, went back with a different mindset, and was able to alleviate that issue. But yeah, that would be probably the worst case scenario that I had, where I for 3 months I lost basically everything and I had to rebuild my life over again. Luckily, I was young and didn't have much to my name beside money, my girlfriend, my apartment, and my job. But I was able to recover pretty fast and got a new job. My girlfriend went back with me after my deliverance. Then moved in with my parents, and my situation from my bank was fixed, where I went from negative to positive again because I was hacked. So like
Gosh.
it seemed to all go downhill. And then after I had a realization of what was occurring and I got prayers done over me, it went all back to normal as well. So yeah, it would be the worst. But the nightmare is probably the most prolific to me, though, because of just what I experienced. I killed 3 children and a husband and wife in my dreams, and just to experience that, especially having children now, uh, just turns my stomach sideways every time I think about it. Because when those people were talking about Saw in the chat, it was to that level of gore and other things that occurred in that nightmare.
That's so much to handle. What do you guys? Oh my God, what are you guys doing over here?
Sorry, I'm reading. It's a very interesting chat.
They get a little crazy sometimes.
Usually, they're very interesting, but this is the most interesting I've come.
This is probably the craziest stuff.
It's all right. It's all right.
Do you think pets can be possessed?
No.
Okay.
I think they could be affected.
I think they can be affected. One of my cats, her name is Mina. She's named after Mina Murray Harker from Dracula. She's our basement cat. Our basement is finished. She has her own fireplace. She has her own bar. She has leather couches. She will not leave the basement. I don't blame her. But every time she looks at something, you take a picture of whatever's there because there's something there. In the Bible, it says that animals were able to be possessed, like Legion was sent into pigs.
Well, they were cast into pigs, but like I guess in sense of terminology, they can be affected and manipulated. But yeah, I don't think so. To be honest with you, I think that they are minor souls animals, but in the same sense, they don't have the same intelligence. Like they could be manipulated. So like a dog can become vicious because of certain reasons. Like you can abuse your dog, it becomes vicious. So I think in that matter it can happen, but I don't think a demonic entity would have any need to possess a pet. It's not their goal.
Yeah, because there's nothing that they can do with them.
Yeah, like they can bite people and stuff like that, or scratch people. But it's like saying, like inanimate objects can be possessed. Like Annabelle's possessed. Annabelle's not possessed. Annabelle is manipulated. Has a demonic entity supposedly binded to her. Robert the doll has supposedly a demonic entity binded to her, to him. Sorry, but that doesn't mean that the item is possessed. It means it's manipulated by the demonic entity.
I asked Mary Jo if she wanted to come on the show tonight, but she had work. So.
Oh yeah, I did that. I did that episode. Yes, the Devil's Doll. Yep.
So what are you up to these days? Are you writing books? Are you still working on Deliverance? Do you have anything happening with TV shows?
So currently, I run the Dominion Ministry, so I do a lot of consultation and a lot of haven't been doing much cases lately due to my schedule, having a new baby.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. But been doing a lot of consultation. I do a lot of lectures, a lot of radio engagements to get the word out, to have people understand the realities and misconceptions of this field. I do have a book that I didn't necessarily write, but I had some contribution to, coming out in December. It's written by C.L. Thomas. It's called Dancing with Demons.
I like it.
That should be an interesting book. I think that her story and a little bit of my involvement in it will be helpful to her mission of telling her story, but as well her book sales. I think that would be an interesting book for the people to read. I'm going to Romania this Saturday for 11 days.
Jealous.
I will have pictures of that. I will be investigating all throughout Romania's castles and fortresses and haunted locations. And then I have what else do I have coming up? I can't think, but yeah, if people want to see what I'm doing, you can go to my website, jamesannitto.com, my Facebook, same James Annitto, my Instagram, so on and so on. Contact me, 401-808-7416. If you abuse it, I will abuse you. But yeah, no, get in touch with me, see what I'm doing, where I'm going to be. I'm all over the U.S. next year. So if you want to meet me, if you want to talk to me, please do so.
And you do a lot of work with Carl and Keith, right?
Yeah, I was working with Carl for a long period of time called Duo Demonology, but we're no longer working together. We're still friends and compadres in the field, but sometimes you have to go your separate ways. Sometimes things are meant to occur differently. As far as Keith, we're doing a limited tour coming up called Good and Evil Demonology Tour. So Keith and I will be at a few locations coming up in 2023, and then as well, I am also doing some things with Sam Baltrusis, who's an author, which we're doing Monsters of the Paranormal, and we have a few places we're speaking at as well. A big one that we can't announce yet, but it'll be a great place to have that lecture done.
Very cool. Will you be at the Battlefield Bash?
This year I will be. I wasn't able to come this past year due to, of course, a newborn and some other things that were going on. But yeah, I will be at the Battlefield Bash this year. December and July, they call it, and a Christmas in July. I will be there. I have booked my hotel. I cannot wait for it.
We just booked ours 2 days ago. We're very excited.
Yeah, it's almost sold out.
I know.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
crazy.
It's come a long way. It's come a long way. I've been with them since day one with this event, and to see it go up in a positive spiral is great, because what they do, as a veteran,
Amazing.
I served in the Army. I respect what their mission is for.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm actually going to be on the panel for the metaphysical this year. We actually do have a surprise as well. Floof will be there again.
I can't wait. Such a cutie.
He ripped open a bag of litter the other night and threw it all over the living room floor. And I walked in.
What a good boy.
And he was surfing through it.
What a good boy. I'm just kidding.
He's crazy. So it'll be, and he's much bigger now.
Oh, I can imagine.
Much bigger. So this should be interesting to bring him there, but it'll be a fun time, I think. It'll be a good time. I like how the money is dedicated to the veterans.
Yes, for sure.
So if anybody wants to show up at the Battlefield Bash, it'll be July 14th through the 16th in Gettysburg. Gettysburg is always a good time. You can find anything paranormal there. I have pictures. Every picture has something in it. It's amazing. It's my favorite place, I think, to go. Ufi has a question. What are your thoughts on William Pulliam's representation of humans and their demons in his Golden Compass novels?
Actually, never read the Golden Compass novels, actually, to be honest with you.
She always has the best questions. Half the time I don't understand them because she speaks on a whole different level than I do.
Well, it's a good question. I've heard of the series, of course, but
I have too. I haven't read them myself.
There's so many books out there that I don't. My nose is more into scholarly articles or scientific articles than anything right now, especially being in school for psychology, and I don't have the time, to be honest.
You have so much going on.
Once I get off of here, I'm doing homework. So
I'm either cleaning the house, cleaning up after a floof, making dinner, doing laundry, doing a wedding, doing research.
It is tough, and I've already packed. Tomorrow. I hopefully goes by a blur, and I am on a 12-hour flight. I can't wait.
I go so slow. I'm sorry to tell you. My husband wants to know. This is his question. What is the most accurate portrayal of possession in movies?
So my favorite movie is The Rite with Anthony Hopkins.
Mine too. I love that movie.
It's a great book as well, based on a true story once again. But I would say The Rite is probably one of the best, one of the better interpretations of actually what occurs and what's possible. Very great movie.
So that's the most similar.
most similar, yeah, for sure. There are a lot of great movies out there, but I think the right handles realism a little bit better than all the other ones.
Have you ever left a place and just been so creeped out that you felt like you were constantly watching behind you?
Yeah, multiple places, but I I don't have a I have a weird bone in my body where I don't really get scared very easily.
That's me
So
too.
I'm a moron and I always go back. Yeah, like there's places like Old South Pittsburgh Hospital and Hales Bar Dam in Tennessee, Waverly Hill Sanitarium, St. Albans Sanatorium, Tala in Virginia, USS Salem in Quincy, Massachusetts. Those are some of the places that, like, when I go on board, there's always that feeling like someone's watching you.
Yeah.
And some of those locations have had some of the best activity I've ever had. Old South Pittsburgh Hospital and USS Salem, some of the craziest experiences I've ever had in my life at those two locations. I will always go back. I have not necessarily free roam at USS Salem, but I'm good friends with Don DeCristofaro of the Greater Boston Paranormal Associates, who runs the boat. And great friend, and I love helping donate to that ship, and I love checking out that ship anytime I go on board.
I always have people ask me, aren't you afraid of connecting to the other side, or aren't you afraid of going places? Because I'm not an exorcist, but I do home cleanses and things like that. And I'm like, no, because I think ever since I was little, I've had abilities. So I've always had like things tug my hair or touch me or, talk to me and whatever. I think it's more like I've always wanted more because it's so intriguing to me and it's the unknown.
Yeah, for sure. I get that.
It's like it's like the ultimate holy grail that ghost hunters want, oh my God, it's a full body apparition. Well, that's stuff I see in my bed next to me. You know what I mean?
So I just did this, I call it inhuman, demonic in the sense. I was in Vulture City, which is located near Wickensburg, Arizona. And I got this piece that was sent to me. Well, actually, before I do that, there's talking about Annabelle. That's from this past weekend.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But it was this piece right here. Let me see. Where the hell is it? It was captured by somebody, and it really went downward after that. Let me see. But this was very interesting for sure. This is probably like one of the pieces of Holy Grail I would say. Sorry, I'm looking for. Ooh, there's Ghost. That's Pope Emeritus from Ghost. It's a good band. This is Dancing with Demons cover.
I love that. It's amazing.
And then I'm trying to find this. I'm so sorry. Give me a second. It is very fascinating. It has to be shown.
Well, you're looking for that. I'm going to read to you. What do you use for protection? Like, do you have a cross and holy water? And I'm curious on the use of crosses for protection. Is it just the cross itself, or do you have to ask for protection in the moment to be protected?
Holy crap, that's a long question.
Well, there's two.
So I do wear protection such as, my cross is packed for the weekend, but I do have on my keys. Let me see. I have St. Benedict's medal that I always carry on my keys because sometimes I don't wear my cross because I'm very forgetful. So I do wear it in a sense. What I tell people, like with amulets, talismans, and crosses that you can wear or medals, is it is an analogy of wearing a bulletproof vest and bulletproof helmet. You can wear that stuff, but it doesn't mean that you're going to survive being shot still. So you can wear it. It is a layer or a wall of protection. But really, my most protection is this.
Yep.
My faith. If I won't go in a case unless I'm fully there, fully ready to handle the case, handle the individual. If I have doubts within myself, I won't go. I will delay. So I think the protection and on top of yourself are the two key components. And what was the other question about the cross?
Is it just the cross itself, or do you have to ask for protection in the moment to be protected?
Well, so a cross for me, as being a clergy member, I do blessings on religious items. So I can make holy water, I can bless holy oil, I can bless religious articles, I can bless rosaries. So these items are blessed. Sometimes you redo a blessing on them, just to kind of like how people renew their vows in a marriage. But once they're blessed, I think that they contain that as long as you continue having a positive message towards what this item's utilized for. So it's just not like a wooden cross or just a metal cross. To me, it has holy intentions or positive reinforcement to it, that add that level of protection or outward expression to what its meaning is.
And I would say it's all about perception and intention.
Of course.
When I go in, I talk to Archangel Michael, and I ask for protection before I go anywhere. I ground myself, I protect myself, and I speak to my guides. I think that's super important. I speak to my deceased loved ones who have passed on to ask for protection. I talk to my ascended masters. I always have my bracelets and necklaces on with my crystals. You never wear a crystal after it breaks, ever. You bury it.
Yeah.
I gave my husband Saint Benedict ring and necklace because when he goes someplace with me, he's like, I'm going to kill it. Where is it? I'm going to take it. And I'm like, you can't kill it. It's already gone. If it's going after somebody, he's going to take it out. And I'm like, just.
Oh, is he Constantine?
It's Saint Benedict necklace and ring. But he's like ready to fight anything that comes near anything. And I'm like, you can't take something out that's already gone. Put the ring and the necklace on. Shut your mouth.
Yeah, I'm going to do this. Ready? Can you see my screen? Am I sharing it?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, there. Okay, wait. I have to bring it in.
Pop it up.
There we go.
All right, here.
Super small. Oh, there we go. What is that? What is that?
Here, this is actually a bad. Let me do this instead. Let me go to our messages. Everybody's going to see my messages here. You see it better?
It's small, but.
Wait a sec.
Are you going to
Wait a sec.
make us all mind blown? What?
Wait a sec.
James, I could show you stuff. I'll have to send you pictures that I
see
have.
That?
What is that?
See the person right here?
That's
the person.
shadow person.
Yeah, and look at there's me right there, that beautiful face. Look at. But yeah, you see how tall this thing is?
It's like 13 feet tall.
Well, it's more like 7 foot tall, but I'll give you that because there's my height right here.
Oh, because the ceiling comes down.
Yeah, the ceiling comes down, but that's crazy, huh?
Where is that?
This is Vulture City.
Well, that whole area is super. Oh, yeah. That's like dark.
Like you can actually see like a nose right here, like a mouth.
What kind of? It has like a hat on or something.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's not matrixing because if it was like any pareidolia or a finger, like you wouldn't see this head right here, and you wouldn't see this person. It would be basically taking this person out. Like you see how it's implanted right in between these two people?
Yep. It's totally crazy. Solid.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Super crazy.
Yeah.
I'll have
Yeah,
to
listen,
share some of this.
that was actually a case that I had to put. This was a few weeks ago, and I had to perform a minor exorcism at that location because it was affecting people. It was making people sick. It had taken over somebody for a spur of a moment. It had brought up somebody's past. It was a very hectic situation. And then the person that's standing up, mind you, this is at a church at the mining town, and basically the other person that was standing there, the bald head, that's the face is blurred out, standing at the altar, is another demonologist. His name is Leon Wilkes. I brought him there that weekend to speak with me because he lives in New Mexico. We had never met. We've just been acquaintances and friends for almost 10 years and never met. But he was actually speaking liturgy at that moment in time that appeared. And
So he was holding mass.
More so, we were just speaking liturgy. We're not holding mass, but yeah, no, it was pretty interesting.
Before he goes, does he see or believe in orbs?
So, let me get a shirt. Let me see if I can have it real quickly. Let me see. What is it called? Right? Here's a perfect shirt for that.
Say it's an orb one more time. I dare you.
What is it called? So I think some orbs can be legitimate. If there's a nuclei, there's other forms of it. How it moves, how it appears. But I like to use the word wisp, like will-o-wisp, which is the old saying of an orb. I think a wisp is more identifiable as a spiritual phenomena than an orb. I remember I think it was 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, when Ghost Hunters, actually 15 years, maybe 20 years ago, something like that. I think a few years later, after the show came out, where orbs were very popular at the beginning series of Ghost Hunters, Sony actually had to come out with a press release saying, this is why orbs are created in your digital camera. Bugs, dust, light refraction, and other things. So there are a lot of explanations. And I always say I love working with skeptics as well, like Skeptical Inquirer, CSI, which is Kenny Biddle, which was created by James Randi. I love working with them too, and I love being skeptical in a lot of things because it allows you to dig further. But he also came out with an article on the Skeptical Inquirer of how you identify photography. And it's a pretty interesting article. Definitely read up on it. And that is a long answer on your question, sir or ma'am.
Well, I don't want to keep you. We said 8:00 and you have homework and you have packing to do to your big trip that you love to rub in every space.
I have to. Yeah, but I definitely got to do homework. I don't know how. Remember, I'm going 6 hours in the future, which is going to be oddly weird. Now I feel like
that is crazy when you think of it that way, right?
I am in a DeLorean with the flux capacitor, and I have Doc right next to me.
My doctor's name is actually Michael J. Fox.
That's awesome.
That's what I said to him when I walked in. I said, "Are you going to fix me with your flux?"
Hopefully, he doesn't have Parkinson's. Could you imagine? That would suck.
And he goes,
trying to check
all the time.
Trying to check your with the otoscope, trying to check your breathe, and he's shaking. That's a terrible joke. I'm sorry.
He's actually like the best guy ever because no one else could figure out what was wrong with me. He came in with this huge notebook with tons of notes from my chart when I switched to him. And he said, I did all this research last night and I'm hoping that I can help you. But he talks like Ben Stein and he looks like John from Garfield.
That's awesome.
He's the sweetest guy and he's just the best. And when I was mayor of my town, he goes, I saw you on TV last night. I was so excited. I told my wife and I said, that makes you part of my medicine cabinet now.
That's awesome.
He's the best. I hope you have the best time.
Thank
and
you.
I wish you safe travels. And I'm so excited to hear about your stories.
Well,
And
we'll have you back on to speak about Romania.
Oh God, I would love for you to come back. This was the best time ever. It's so exciting to talk to you, and this was amazing. I loved having you on my show.
I appreciate it, and I hope you have me on again, of course. And
I would love that.
I loved being on, and I look forward to seeing you at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash.
Yes, and I'm sure that you loved reading all the dish on the side here.
Oh,
this
loved
kept
it.
you busy.
It made me chuckle a few times. So, and there's nothing wrong with a few chuckles.
Yeah, I love to have fun. I mean, it gets boring in life and everything else, so I like to have it a little bit fun.
Of course, it can't be serious all the time.
Yeah. So I'll send you some of my pictures and I'll share that stuff. And I would hope that you'd be back. And when do you get back? You get back in 2 weeks, you said?
Yeah, I'll be back the night of the 16th.
Listen, you take the cross and you watch out for vampires. And if you see any, I want you to tell me immediately.
Yes, if there's any strigoi, which is what they call the vampires in Romania, I will definitely tell you if I'm not one myself.
The vampires were my first show, and strigoi are different from vampires. They actually kind of look like bats.
They do. They definitely look different, but it's the same lore. Yeah. Vampires came from the strigoi legend.
Well, I hope that you have safe travels, and please let me know how it goes. And we'll talk to you shortly.
Sounds good. Peace.
Okay, well, I'm going to sign you off, and I'm going to stick around to say some things to these lovely people, and I'm going to give them a little bit of a slap on the wrist for being bold while you're here. So you have a great night.
Thank you very much. All right.
And have a safe travel.
Thank you.
Thank you. So guys, that was James, and he's a wonderful speaker, and he's a great guy. And I'm so glad that he was here. I do have to answer a couple of questions because I had these asked of me, which seems irrelevant to what we're doing. But my hair is done by Kelly Sharon, and it is done at Spruce It Up, which is owned by D. Ashford. So that's a little clip. Does anyone have any questions before we leave for the night? I will ask about travelers. I'm glad you guys liked this episode. I thought this was really cool. Thank you for saying it was a great show. I really thought this was a cool show. I did learn a little bit, which is awesome. I like to do research and learn some things. This was fun. Am I going to call you back? I'm not sure who you are based on your name. It was great, Daisy. Thank you so much. So since I don't know who you are, if you want to send me a message, I will figure out who I'm supposed to call back. So that is everything about attachments, possessions, and exorcisms. If anyone would like a reading, I would be glad to do one for you. Let me know. You can reach me at www.alilwitchy.com. And you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can also call me or text me at 570-880-0480. I'm glad you all love the show, and I hope you have a great night. This was Incantations and Elixirs, where conversation meets cocktails. See you next time, Thursday nights, 6 to 8 Eastern Standard Time. Talk to you then.